If you think Canada is all politeness and safety, think again. In 2025, some Canadian cities are battling crime rates that rival major American hotspots with violent incidents over 1,500 per 100,000 residents. That's a 1 in 66 chance of being personally affected this year, costing billions in policing healthcare and lost property values, which peaceful-looking neighborhoods are hiding. Shocking crime statistics that could make you rethink your next move. Thunder Bay, Ontario. Thunder Bay sits on the shores of Lake Superior, looking like a postcard-perfect northern Ontario city with hiking trails, waterfalls, and outdoor adventures that draw thousands of visitors each year. But beneath that scenic surface lies a shocking reality. This city of 110,000 people has consistently held Canada's highest murder rate per capita for years running with 21 homicides per 100,000 residents in recent data. That's more than 7 times the national average of 2.8, making it statistically more dangerous than many major American cities. The numbers hit even harder when you consider the human stories behind them. Indigenous women and youth face disproportionate risks with hate crimes and missing persons, cases that have drawn national attention and calls for systemic change. Many residents, particularly those from First Nations communities, report feeling unsafe walking downtown after dark or in certain neighborhoods where drug-related violence and gang activity have become persistent problems. Economic factors fuel much of the crisis. Thunder Bay's unemployment rate consistently hovers above the provincial average at around 8% compared to Ontario's 6.2%, with limited job opportunities outside government mining and forestry. Many young people face few alternatives to street economies that often lead to criminal involvement. The city's poverty rate sits at nearly 18%, well above the national average, creating conditions where desperation and opportunity intersect dangerously. Despite these challenges, Thunder Bay residents aren't giving up. Community organizations like Mattawa, First Nations management, and local youth centers are working tirelessly to provide alternatives and support systems. Neighborhood watch programs have expanded, and police services are implementing culturally sensitive approaches to build trust with Indigenous communities. But with such entrenched systemic issues, progress feels frustratingly slow for many families living with daily safety concerns. While Thunder Bay grapples with these deep-rooted problems, the crisis extends far beyond Ontario's borders, as Western Canada faces its own unique set of urban challenges where different factors create equally dangerous conditions. Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. Prince Albert, Saskatchewan might sound like a sleepy prairie town, but this city of 37,000 is anything but peaceful, with a violent crime rate of 2,100 per 100,000 residents. It ranks among Canada's most dangerous places. That means roughly 1 in every 47 people will experience violent crime this year, a probability that would shock anyone expecting typical small-town tranquility. Gang activity drives much of the violence, with multiple criminal organizations competing for control of drug trafficking routes that connect Western Canada to Eastern markets. Methamphetamine and fentanyl have flooded local streets, creating addiction crises that fuel property crimes and violent confrontations between rival groups. Police report that gang recruitment actively targets Indigenous youth from surrounding communities, promising quick money, but delivering cycles of violence and incarceration that devastate families. The impact on local businesses is devastating. Many downtown shops close early or install expensive security systems just to survive break-ins and robberies, while families increasingly avoid certain neighborhoods. After dark, school officials report concerns about gang recruitment on campus, and some parents drive their children to school rather than let them walk through areas known for drug activity. The once thriving downtown core now struggles with vacant storefronts and declining foot traffic as safety concerns override shopping convenience. With only 63 officers serving the city and surrounding rural areas, Prince Albert Police Service faces overwhelming challenges responding to calls that often involve weapons and dangerous suspects. Response times can stretch beyond acceptable limits, especially during peak crime hours, leaving residents feeling vulnerable and unprotected. Community groups are organizing neighborhood watches and youth programs, but limited funding and volunteer burnout hamper their effectiveness. While Saskatchewan grapples with prairie crime patterns, an unexpected hotspot has emerged thousands of kilometers away. where Atlantic Canada's reputation for friendliness masks a surprising surge in criminal activity. Moncton, New Brunswick. Moncton, New Brunswick has long marketed itself as the gateway to the Maritimes, with friendly locals, scenic coastlines, and that famous maritime hospitality. But behind the welcoming facade, this city of 79,000 is experiencing a crime surge that's catching residents and authorities off guard. Property crime rates have jumped to 4,800 per 100,000 residents, giving you roughly a 1 in 21 chance of having your home car or belongings targeted. That's higher than Halifax, Montreal, or even some notorious American cities. Break-ins have become so common that many neighborhoods look like fortresses with security cameras, ring doorbells, and alarm system signs posted on nearly every streetcar. Thefts and vandalism spike during summer months when tourists flood the area, creating opportunities for quick grabs and easy targets. Downtown businesses report regular shoplifting incidents and after-hours break-ins that force them to invest thousands in security measures they never needed before. Economic pressures drive much of this criminal activity. Moncton's unemployment rate sits at 7.4%, above the national average, while housing costs have surged nearly 30% since 2021, forcing many residents into financial desperation. The opioid crisis has also hit the Maritimes hard, with addiction-related crimes climbing steadily as people struggle to afford treatment or find stable housing and employment. The tourism industry that Moncton depends on is starting to notice. Visitors report feeling unsafe walking downtown after evening events, and some hotels now provide safety escorts to parking areas. Local business investment has slowed as entrepreneurs worry about security costs and potential losses from theft, which creates fewer jobs and perpetuates the economic cycle feeding crime. Community policing initiatives and neighborhood watch programs are expanding rapidly, with over 40 active groups now monitoring residential areas. But even these efforts feel reactive rather than preventive as residents adapt to a new reality of constant vigilance. Yet even Moncton's challenges pale compared to the unique dangers faced in Canada's remote northern territories, where isolation creates entirely different sets of risks. Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. Yellowknife sits on the shores of Great Slave Lake, nearly 1,500 kilometers from the nearest major city, and that isolation creates dangers you might never expect. This territorial capital of 20,000 faces an assault rate of 1,700 per 100,000 residents, more than double the national average when help is hours away and winter temperatures drop to minus 40 degrees Celsius. Personal conflicts can escalate into life-threatening situations with nowhere to run and limited options for intervention. Domestic violence statistics paint an even grimmer picture, with rates nearly 3 times higher than southern Canadian cities. The combination of social isolation, seasonal depression, and limited economic opportunities creates pressure cooker environments, where family disputes turn violent. Alcohol-related incidents spike during the long, dark winter months, when some residents see only a few hours of daylight for weeks at a time. Emergency room staff report that weekend nights bring a predictable stream of assault victims, often involving people who know each other well. Law enforcement faces unprecedented challenges, with only 32 RCMP officers covering not just Yellowknife, but surrounding communities. Accessible only by ice roads or small aircraft. Backup can be hours or even days away during severe weather, and medical emergencies requiring specialized care mean expensive air ambulance flights to Edmonton or Calgary, if weather permits, creating delays that can prove fatal. Mental health and addiction support services are critically understaffed, with waiting lists stretching months for counseling and only one small treatment facility serving the entire territory. Many residents struggling with substance abuse or trauma have no choice but to leave family and community behind to seek help in southern cities, where they often feel culturally disconnected and isolated from support systems that understand northern realities. The territorial government has invested in community wellness programs and is training more local mental health workers, but progress feels glacial when measured against immediate needs that affect multiple generations of families trapped in cycles of violence and addiction. While northern isolation creates its own set of dangers, major urban centers across Canada face different but equally serious challenges, where population density and gang activity create new forms of community risk. Regina, Saskatchewan. Regina serves as Saskatchewan's capital and government center, but it also holds the unfortunate distinction of ranking among Canada's top 5 cities for crime severity, with an index score of 130 compared to the national average of 73. That means crime in Regina is nearly twice as severe as typical Canadian cities, with violent crime rates reaching 1,400 per 100,000 residents, giving you roughly a 1 in 71 chance of experiencing assault robbery or worse this year. Gang warfare has transformed entire neighborhoods into battlegrounds, with rival groups fighting for control of drug territories that generate millions in illegal revenue. The Indian Posse, Native Syndicate, and Terror Squad have established strongholds in different areas of the city, leading to regular shootings, stabbings, and intimidation tactics that force innocent families to live behind locked doors and avoid certain streets altogether. Police report over 200 documented gang members operating in the city, with recruitment actively targeting youth as young as 12 years old. School safety has become a primary concern for parents and educators, with weapons incidents reported at multiple high schools and middle schools. In recent years, some schools now employ security guards and metal detectors, while others have implemented lockdown procedures that students practice alongside fire drills. Youth crime rates have surged, with offenders under 18 accounting for nearly 30% of all violent crimes committed in the city, creating a pipeline that feeds adult criminal organizations. Regina Police Service struggles with response times averaging over 8 minutes for priority calls, while community safety programs compete for limited funding. Neighborhood watch groups have formed in response to resident demands, but many feel overwhelmed by the scope of criminal activity affecting their daily lives, from vandalized property to drug houses operating openly on residential streets. The crisis extends far beyond Regina's borders, as similar patterns emerge throughout Prairie Canada, where economic challenges and limited opportunities create fertile ground for organized crime to flourish across provincial boundaries. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Saskatoon, home to the University of Saskatchewan and nearly 300,000 residents, should feel like a safe place to study and build a future. But this prairie city posts property crime rates of 5,200 per 100,000 residents, giving you a 1 in 19 chance of having your belongings stolen, broken into, or vandalized. That's particularly devastating for university students living in apartments near campus, where break-ins have become so common that many now sleep with baseball bats beside their beds and never leave electronics visible through windows. Drug trafficking has exploded throughout the city, with fentanyl and methamphetamine operations targeting both desperate addicts and curious students who underestimate the dangers involved. Police seizures have increased 40% over the past 3 years, but dealers quickly replace arrested suppliers, creating an endless cycle that fuels addiction-related crimes like theft, shoplifting, and violent robberies committed by people desperate for their next fix. Emergency room staff report treating overdose victims daily, while families watch loved ones disappear into addiction. The downtown core has deteriorated significantly, with businesses reporting regular shoplifting incidents and customers avoiding evening shopping due to safety concerns. Broadway Avenue, once a vibrant strip of cafes and shops, now sees frequent police patrols responding to fights, drug deals, and vandalism, while the Riversdale neighborhood struggles with prostitution and gang activity that makes residents afraid to walk alone after sunset. Even near the university campus, students report being robbed, mugged, or followed while walking to late-night study sessions. Economic inequality drives much of the criminal activity, with Saskatoon's poverty rate sitting at nearly 15%, while housing costs continue rising, creating desperation among those left behind by the city's economic growth. Indigenous residents face particular challenges, with unemployment rates more than double the city average, leading to involvement in illegal economies that promise quick money but deliver prison sentences and broken families. While Saskatchewan cities battle prairie crime syndicates, the problems extend westward, where British Columbia's urban centers face their own escalating challenges with organized crime and public safety. Surrey, British Columbia. Surrey, British Columbia, with over 500,000 residents, has become ground zero for some of Canada's most violent gang conflicts, with shooting incidents occurring almost weekly in what should be quiet family neighborhoods. The city recorded 43 shootings in recent months alone, giving residents a constant reminder that organized crime has turned suburban streets into battlefields, where innocent families duck for cover. when gunfire erupts outside shopping centers, schools, and residential areas. The Brothers Keepers Red Scorpions and United Nations gangs wage territorial wars over drug trafficking routes worth hundreds of millions annually, with Surrey serving as a crucial hub for importing and distributing cocaine, fentanyl, and other narcotics throughout Western Canada. These aren't street-level dealers, but sophisticated criminal enterprises with international connections that use extreme violence to settle disputes and maintain control over lucrative markets that generate more revenue than many legitimate businesses. Family neighborhoods that once attracted young parents seeking affordable homes near Vancouver now live under siege, with bullet holes appearing in houses, daycares, and community centers, while children play indoors because parents fear stray gunfire. Local businesses report customers avoiding evening shopping, and some restaurants close early rather than risk becoming collateral damage in gang conflicts. Insurance premiums have skyrocketed and property values stagnate as families flee to safer communities. Surrey's transition from RCMP to its own municipal police force represents a desperate attempt to address crime that federal policing couldn't control. The new Surrey Police Service promises more officers, faster response times, and better community connections, but with over 600 officers needed and recruitment challenges plaguing law enforcement across Canada, the transition faces significant hurdles, while gang violence continues unabated. The violence doesn't stop at Surrey's borders as criminal organizations expand their operations into neighboring communities, where Canada's most expensive real estate markets create new opportunities for money laundering and corruption. Vancouver, British Columbia. Vancouver attracts millions of tourists each year with its stunning mountain backdrop, world-class dining, and vibrant cultural scene. But just blocks away from gleaming hotels and cruise ship terminals lies one of North America's most concentrated areas of urban decay, the downtown east side, where over 2,000 people struggle with addiction, homelessness, and mental illness, creating a drug market that generates property crime rates of 6,000 per 100,000 residents. That's a 1 in 17 chance of having your belongings stolen. The contrast is jarring. You can walk from the luxury shops of Robson Street into neighborhoods where open drug use happens on every corner, and theft rings operate with impunity, targeting everything from bicycles to copper pipes stripped from construction sites. Visitors often stumble into areas where used needles litter sidewalks, and aggressive panhandling can turn threatening, especially after dark when desperation peaks and police presence thins. Property crime affects the entire city, with break-ins, car thefts, and vandalism spreading far beyond the downtown east side into residential neighborhoods where homeowners install security systems that cost more than many people's monthly rent. Bike theft has become so common that cyclists use multiple locks and still expect their rides to disappear, while car prowling incidents spike near popular restaurants and entertainment venues where thieves target vehicles with visible electronics. Vancouver's housing crisis fuels much of the criminal activity, with average home prices exceeding $1.5 million and rental costs consuming over 50% of median incomes. Many residents live paycheck to paycheck, making them vulnerable to economic shocks that can lead to homelessness, addiction, and involvement in survival crimes. The city's shelter system operates at capacity year-round, while waiting lists for treatment programs stretch for months. Money laundering through luxury real estate purchases has attracted international criminal organizations that use Vancouver's property market to clean proceeds from drug trafficking and other illegal activities, creating a cycle where crime profits drive up housing costs that push more residents toward desperation. Yet even Vancouver's complex urban challenges pale beside the sustained crisis facing Prairie Canada's largest and most troubled metropolitan center. Winnipeg, Manitoba. Winnipeg, Manitoba, home to 750,000 people, has earned the grim distinction of being Canada's murder capital, with homicide rates consistently ranking among the highest in the country at 43 per 100,000 residents. That's more than 15 times the national average and higher than many American cities known for violence. You have a 1 in 2,300 chance of being murdered in Winnipeg this year, a probability that should terrify anyone considering this prairie metropolis is home. Gang warfare dominates entire neighborhoods, with the Mad Cows Indian Posse and African Mafia controlling drug territories worth millions, while recruiting children as young as 10 years old into criminal organizations that promise protection and quick money, but deliver prison sentences and early graves. The North End and Point Douglas areas have become virtual war zones, where gunshots echo nightly and residents board up windows not for winter protection, but to stop stray bullets from entering their homes. Economic desperation feeds the violence cycle, with indigenous communities facing unemployment rates exceeding 30%, while the overall city poverty rate sits at 18%, nearly double the national average. Many families live in substandard housing without adequate heat or running water, creating conditions where illegal activities seem like the only path to survival or escape from grinding poverty that spans generations. Winnipeg Police Service struggles with over 90,000 calls annually while dealing with chronic understaffing and budget constraints that limit their ability to respond effectively to the constant stream of violent incidents. Community organizations like Bear Clan Patrol have stepped up to fill gaps in safety services, but volunteers can only do so much when facing organized criminal enterprises armed with sophisticated weapons and unlimited drug money. Despite all these challenges, Winnipeg's crisis pales in comparison to what's happening in a remote northern Manitoba city, where crime statistics reach levels that defy comprehension and challenge everything we thought we knew about safety in Canada. Thompson, Manitoba. Thompson, Manitoba. A mining city of 13,000 people buried 700 kilometers north of Winnipeg, holds the shocking distinction of having Canada's highest crime severity index at 394, nearly 6 times the national average. That means crime in Thompson is so severe and frequent that living there exposes you to dangers unimaginable in most Canadian communities, with violent crime rates exceeding 4,000 per 100,000 residents. You face a 1 in 25 chance of experiencing assault, robbery, or worse each year. The city's remote location creates perfect conditions for criminal activity to flourish, with only 18 RCMP officers covering Thompson and surrounding communities, accessible only by air or single highway that can be cut off during severe weather. Backup support is hours away, and specialized emergency services require expensive flights from Winnipeg, creating delays that can prove fatal when violence erupts in a community where everyone knows everyone else and disputes can escalate quickly. Economic boom and bust cycles drive much of the instability. When Vale's nickel operations lay off, workers' entire families face financial ruin, with few alternative employment options in a city built around mining. The resulting desperation fuels addiction, property crime, and domestic violence. While those who do have steady employment often earn high wages that create resentment and targeting by criminals seeking quick scores from people with limited spending options in an isolated economy. Mental health and addiction services are virtually non-existent, forcing residents struggling with trauma or substance abuse to choose between expensive travel for treatment or suffering in silence, where self-medication through alcohol and drugs often leads to criminal behavior. The lack of recreational facilities, educational opportunities, and social services creates a perfect storm of boredom, desperation, and limited options, especially for young people who see crime as their only path to excitement or income. Despite these overwhelming challenges, Thompson residents demonstrate remarkable resilience, with community groups organizing youth programs, cultural events, and support networks that provide alternatives to criminal involvement, while local leaders push for increased funding and resources to address the systemic issues that make their northern home the most dangerous place to live in Canada.